Listen to the rumble. Listen to the roar. Slowly in 3. They'll be flying off 4. Watch them now.
The main, like I said, the reason I want to talk to you guys is because you are a married couple that hot rod together, and you hot rod a bunch. And by hot rodding, I mean you guys build traditional, really nice, really nice traditional hot rods at home in your own shop. You do everything yourself. 99% of everything yourself. I mean, I've seen you tear the engines down. I've seen you do everything. And then you drive them to events all over the place and together. And you guys put a lot of miles on them. And distance doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Well, I'm talking to Cory Taulbert and Ashley Taulbert, formerly Ashley Webb. And I got to say that because I met you through your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna,
SEMA 1 year.
And I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Ashley, your dad is Dan Webb. And he's one of my favorite guys. He is. He's awesome. I love your dad because I tell people his honesty about anyone and everyone. Mm-hmm. He won't hold back. If he doesn't like someone, he'll gladly tell you. But it's funny with your dad. It's not like he's a grouch that doesn't like people. Anytime I've ever heard him say something about like someone that he doesn't like, it's true.
Yeah.
Like what he says, I'm totally like, oh, that's so true.
Yeah, that's what I found out. I guess he's lived it.
Yeah.
Find out,
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Now let's do, I'm going to have your dad on the podcast, okay. But just a real quick, your dad's a hot rodder from way back, obviously, and he was hot rodding way before you came along.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, did he grow up around here?
He grew up in the Flint area.
Okay, cool.
And then he worked, he was like on the crew for Al Bergler's car. He traveled with them.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And he painted some of his cars way back in the day before I was born. So.
I knew he went way back with Al, but I didn't know he was on the crew.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he traveled with them to all the...
When did he get into what he does? For what I know him for and what most people know him for is he does amazing cutaways for the big 3. Like, you know, when you go to SEMA or the auto show and there's a brand new engine there that's all cut away and you can see the pistons and the crank and everything's moving and it's on this amazing display, your dad builds those.
Yes.
And that's a level of machining and fabricating that most people can't fathom.
Yeah, and we always have a really tight...
That's another thing.
It's crazy.
I've talked to your dad before when there's like 4 engines that have to go out in like 2 days. Yeah.
So.
And it's funny because your dad will go from we're slammed, we have to do everything in 2 days to
having the summer off.
Yeah.
It's a cool gig.
Yeah, like 3 months off where he can build a hot rod.
He can build a hot rod at that time. So.
That is a cool gig.
Yeah.
So when were you born?
87,
okay.
September 87.
And you're an only child?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you were raised by your dad?
My mom was around till I was about 10.
Okay.
I mean, they got divorced when I was 10. But,
yeah. I know your daddy's girl.
And then I stayed with Dad. So.
Yeah. Because that's, and like I said, I met your dad and you were always with your dad, at the shows and running around. And I remember meeting you at Columbus Good Guys one year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we were all at the show and I had my sedan there.
Okay.
And you were there and I think you might have had the black car there. What year was that built?
That was my Roadster?
Yeah.
2005, I believe it debuted at SEMA. So,
okay. Tell us about that car.
It was just something my dad and I came up with. We wanted to do a project together, and it took us a couple of years. And Craig Neff helped us with it. We had a lot of great help.
Is there a name for that car? Like
the Wedge Roadster.
Okay,
yep.
The Wedge Roadster. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It is like a pointy little wedge, and it's tiny.
It's very tiny.
I mean, is it scaled down from a normal car or just small?
It's scaled down from a normal car, but it's all hand built. So
what engine's in that?
It's a Zaxpeed.
What is that?
It's an IndyCar motor.
Oh, wow.
So.
I should have known that. Yeah, it's new IndyCar stuff.
Yep, it's something he got it was sitting on the shelf up at...
Is it a V8 then, or is it a 4-cylinder?
It's a four-cylinder.
It's like the Turbo 4 Mustang of the 80s.
Yeah.
Is that engine block with the Zach Speed cylinder head?
It was sitting on the shelf at John Vermuche's, and Dad asked him, "What are you gonna do with that?"
Wow.
Because Dad always builds a car around an engine and tires and wheels. That's
Yeah, that makes sense with his builds. Now your dad's a Riddler winner, isn't he?
Yes, 1990 he won with the Roadster. So.
How old were you there? Yeah.
What was I? We have photos of me like standing by the car, but I was like, I think two or three.
Wow.
So,
I mean, that's huge. For people that are in the hot rodding world, you know what the Riddler means.
Yep.
It makes you. I mean, that's it. You go down in history.
I think it means more to me than it does him.
Yeah, because your dad's not the show type.
No.
He's so not the show type.
No.
Which is why we get along.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a Riddler winner, so you grew up in that show.
The show going around.
Yeah, because he always had cars on display. Even as anti-show as he is, he always has prominent cars
when I was little,
in.
we did the show circuit.
Okay.
The Riddler, going to everywhere.
Was the Riddler, his Riddler build was the purple Roadster?
It was black with like purple anodizing.
That's it.
32,
Where's that car at today?
Mike Salinas actually owns it, the Top Fuel racer. He owns it. Yeah.
Is it still black with purple anodizing and everything?
Yeah, I think they changed the interior because it was like purple.
tweed everywhere.
The 90s,
That's cool that car survived. Yeah. I've wondered. I'm sure there's guys that have kept track of all the Riddler cars, and that would be cool that was probably special for your dad because Al won the first Riddler.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I bet your dad was into that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He wasn't even going to take it, and then the guy that did the interior said, "You should take it there," so he did. So.
Man, that's cool. So now on your Roadster, when he built that, were you driving then?
When we started it, no.
Okay.
But then when it was finished, I was. So,
okay, cool. And then when was the last time you drove that car?
Oh, we haven't drove it in a long time.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
The roads are so bad up here, and it's so low.
Yeah, and that's not a car like.
No.
I mean.
No, we drove it when we had it out at Grand National the one year.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's very cool. Now, I want to talk to you, Cory, because I don't know your background. I've gotten to know you over the years through Dan and Ashley, and gathered just from experience of being around your cars that you're a hell of a hot rodder. And your level of building stuff, I tease you about, because it's like on a Riddler level of a traditional hot rod. It's amazing how the quality of your builds.
Oh, thank you.
And then you drive them thousands and thousands of miles, which is awesome.
Yep.
You see your cars, and it's not cars you expect to be driven to Colorado and back, and to California and back.
Yeah.
It's a compliment. It's huge. Was your dad a hot rodder?
Yeah, so I grew up in I'll say custom car family.
Okay.
More street rodding, we were about modernizing stuff. So there was always a project in the house. And even like it started way back when I was 6, my dad bought me a 32 Ford Roadster, like a Shriner's car.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, we'd go to a car show and, I'd come along with that. So it started as far back as that, but, when I was 11, I wired my dad's 37 Ford Coupe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that I either picked up from him or you learned out of trial and error. Because growing up, we were working family based, right? So there wasn't a lot of money to pay somebody else to do it. So you either learn how to do it or you traded labor with a friend that knew how to do it.
That's how I learned most of my stuff, with mini trucks.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to pay anyone to do it, so I'm going to learn how to do this.
But as far as like going over towards traditional stuff, when I was in high school, as much as I hate to say it, I seen Jimmy Shine's pickup, right?
Yeah.
And that really honestly turned a lot of people.
I love that truck.
Yeah, it turned a lot of people.
Scott Williams and I, we drooled over that truck.
I think that was a very pivotal truck for traditional cars in the modern time. Is it got a lot of people focused on that stuff. And so I set down a path. In college, I built a 34 Ford pickup, and it had a lot of styling cues from
That's
Shine's
cool.
truck. Yeah.
That Shine's truck will go down in history like the J2000 and like all those monumental hot rods that changed an entire era and brought on a whole nother style.
Agreed.
Like, the J2000 was that Pro Street yellow thing that, like, what was it, what was it, Monza, was it a Pinto or something?
Yeah.
Guys are going to be yelling now because I don't know that. But, and then there's so many monumental cars that change the entire scene.
Yeah.
Barris would build something that would just change everything. Mm-hmm. And Shine's truck was like that. Mm-hmm. After Shine built that truck, we saw a lot of little chopped down trucks running around.
There were a lot, yeah.
Scott and I built his. Scott Williams,
Yeah.
we built his little DeKalb truck because of that. Mm-hmm. We saw Shine's truck. And we started with a 33 or 4 cab.
Okay.
And then he changed to the Dodge cab because he found that Dodge cab. But yeah, so now that truck, where'd that go?
So I actually sold that truck.
Right after we met.
Yeah, so that truck is how I met Ashley.
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
How'd you end up here in Detroit?
So,
School or work?
So going back, I grew up in Kansas City.
Okay.
So school brought me to Michigan. I went to a...
Were you wanting to work for GM, doing what you're doing? Because we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But
So
was it just design school?
Going back, I always had an interest in automotive stuff, and prior to my senior year of high school, I had no idea of, I guess, maybe a good way to work for the big three. And there was a friend of the family who worked at the General Motors Fairfax plant in Kansas City that builds cars.
Okay.
And he found out about me and my interest in cars, wanted to meet me. And the reason he got me down there was to introduce me to General Motors Engineering School in Flint. And that got me on a path to go to Flint. And so I had a bachelor's in mechanical engineering degree.
Okay.
I worked on there from 05 to 09.
Okay. Was it pretty cool? Pretty neat place to go to?
Yeah, it's the engineering school started in 1919.
Wow.
It used to be General Motors only. Now it's actually opened up for any engineering company can send a student there. But the cool thing about this program is it's a co-op program. So to graduate, you have to work for an engineering company and have so many terms. So for me, I was fortunate I worked for General Motors.
Doesn't have to be automotive, just any kind of engineering company?
So there's companies, everything from automotive industry, Toyota, GM, Ford, Chrysler, NASA sends students there, the FBI sends students there.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
But it's really great because you go to
That's
school.
in Flint?
Yeah, in Flint.
Jenny and I were talking about Flint this week because she's been working there with her psychology, and she's noticing all the old buildings and that are available. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining to her that's Chevrolet's ground zero, and I was showing her the Chevrolet gear plant.
Yep.
And then I didn't realize just how much Chevrolet was based out of there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Chevrolet stuff out of there.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the one engineering building at Kettering is called Kettering now. Mm-hmm. Is the building where they built the first 353 Corvettes.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding. I've heard the terminology Kettering, but didn't put it together.
Yeah, so it used to be called GMI, it was General Motors Institute for Engineering. Then, in the late 80s is when they opened up to any engineering company, and they renamed the school Kettering after Charles Kettering.
Okay.
Charles Kettering's famous General Motors engineer. He's the guy that created the electric starter.
Yeah. Okay. I just learned that recently.
So that actually debuted on Cadillac.
Yeah.
So,
Man, that's cool.
So no, it's a great program. So you go to school for a quarter, for 11 weeks. Then you have a week or two off. Then you work for a company for 11 weeks. So it's quarter on, quarter off, and you have to have so many work terms under your belt to actually graduate. So it's really good for hands-on experience. So you're not graduating.
And you get your foot in the door somewhere if you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
You learn right away, is either I got a foot in the door or this is definitely not the type of place I want to work, which is valuable.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of guys graduate college and they waste 5-6 years learning that they don't want to do. And a lot of money learning this isn't what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. So you had your truck at school?
Yeah, so I think my junior, senior year, I brought my 34 pickup up. And actually I had it at Detroit Autorama in 2007.
In the basement?
In the basement, yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay,
and,
cool.
So actually, I need to go back a few months because I took it to Billet Proof in Davisburg.
Yeah.
Not too far from your house. And
God, I might have I came to one of the Billet Proofs up here.
So
I don't remember where I was at.
Yeah, so it would have been 06, June.
No, this was before that. This might have been maybe 04, 05.
So
I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting.
So
I don't think it was 06. It was later than that.
Maybe it was 07. Yeah. But so Billet Proof was on Saturday. So Friday night, typical college kids, we were up late partying and drinking. So me and another buddy get up and we drive from Flint to Davisburg, which is a half hour. And we get down there and it's a cool time. And we're getting ready to leave, and I think we're still hungover and stuff. And I had some lake style headers on the truck, and I, probably a 20-year-old kid or whatever, I figured I needed to pull the caps off of it, so to make a good scene.
Well, yeah, they gotta remember me.
Yeah. So as I'm pulling the caps off, this guy and his daughter walk up to me, and the guy asked me a question about the rear suspension on my truck, and I had done a quarter elliptical rear suspension to package everything underneath the bed floor.
Yeah.
And I blew it off as like one of those guys asking like a dumb question at a car show, right? So I was probably fueled by a hangover, so I know I answered it probably kind of short and maybe a little shitty.
Which Dan probably loved.
And it turned out to be Dan Webb. And
that's right up his alley too.
Yeah.
Quarter elliptic.
Yeah.
And
so we started talking a little bit, and he goes, you should stop by the shop sometime. And at this point, he hadn't told me who he was. And I had no idea who Dan Webb was, or looked like, but I knew who he was.
Okay.
So he hands a business card to me, and as he hands it to me, I look at it, and I see it say Dan Webb, and I go, oh, shit.
What did I just say?
Yeah.
What have I been talking about?
Yeah. So, I think we finished the conversation up with, stop by. And I know, like, after the fact, Ashley told me, like, when they walked off, I think Dan said, man, that kid's a prick or something like that.
Little chump.
Yeah.
That's
great. When you set the bar low, it's easy to look good.
Easy to go up from there.
That's awesome. That's cool. That would get Dan's attention too. Like a quarter elliptic suspension, homemade suspension.
Yeah.
That's right up his alley.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's excellent.
But fast forward to Detroit the following February, I brought the truck up. And that's actually how Ashley and I started talking from that. Because you actually came up to me when I was in the basement, and that's kind of where everything got started.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, guys. That's excellent. Jenny and I met in the basement as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Cool.
Yeah, she was working a booth across from us in the basement.
Very cool.
Yep. So now you guys, obviously, it worked out. Take us to now, kind of bring us up to now. You guys you build hot rods out of your house, and you got a neat house, a neat place. It's unassuming. It's one of the best examples of you don't have to have a big fancy shop to build nice hot rods. And, guys are like, well, you can assemble cars at home, but you can't really do anything big like chop them or build engines. Go to your house, because you just finished up a top, and I mean, like I said, I walked in your place and seen your finished roadster. I've walked in and seen the engine down to bare block, and I think the only thing you don't do there is maybe paint work.
So
just because it's so.
We did that.
So the 5-window, the 32 5-window, we painted in the garage.
Okay, good.
I built a Jeep spray booth.
Yeah, I know what you. Yep. So is it a 4-car?
So
hooked to the house. It's hooked to the house.
Yeah, it's hooked to the house. It's a 3-car, maybe a little oversized 3-car. We park in it in the winter. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool place. It's a neat setup. And like I said, you guys make it happen out of there.
Yeah.
What was the first... Well, I was going to say what was the first car you built there, but maybe we should go before that. Was that the first car?
So,
did you guys build something before that when you were together?
The Roadster was the first one there, but you started it at the house you were running. So.
Once I graduated, I rented a house for a couple years in White Lake, and it was actually cool. I had a detached shop.
Yeah.
It was a cool setup. And so I actually started the Roadster there.
The one you got now?
The black Roadster. And then about midway through is when we moved to this house that we're in now, and that's where we finished the Roadster. Yeah.
So now that black Roadster, it's a steel deuce Roadster. Did you know from the very get-go what you wanted there? Because what and I mean, when I post this, I'll put pictures of it up. And real quick, both you guys, give your Instagram pages, because people are going to want to look at your cars.
Yeah, Ashley.
Mine is A.W. Taulbert.
Yep.
And mine's C. Taulbert, CTAULBERT.
Good, very good. And also, you can Google Dan Webb and see a bunch of cool stuff as well. Your black Roadster is a black deuce Roadster, and it's... I might like the Doane Spencer Roadster a little better, but that's it. Like, your Roadster is perfect.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not a flathead guy, and I like your Roadster because I know how good it runs. Did you know that's exactly how you wanted it from the get-go, or was there things along the way that steered it?
I think I had a general idea of what we wanted. But I'll back it up with, I've got a really good hot rod mentor back in Kansas City. So obviously I grew up, as I said, street rodding, made this shift over to traditional hot rodding. That was largely, like I said, based off Jimmy Shine's truck, but there was a guy back in Kansas City that was into old style hot rods, and his name's John Swander.
Okay.
And John would give me a lot of ideas. You know, if there's something that maybe I was drawing a blank on or stuck on, you know, John's a great guy, has built a lot of cars. And he's kind of like Dan, you know, he's a no bullshit guy. He'll tell you what he thinks.
He reminds me just like
Yeah.
I think that's why we get along
Yeah.
with him.
And so, you know, there was a lot of things like when I did the top, when I chopped the irons on it, I had a lot of input from John. You know, he helped steer me on some stuff for sure. But yeah, you know, we were just after kind of the, you know, the ultimate black 32. I know there's a lot of them.
Yeah, but I mean, if I was building a Deuce Roadster tomorrow, it'd be black.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like red Corvettes and
Yeah.
black Deuce Roadsters, and it's just gotta be.
Yeah.
Tell me about the flat end in that car, because it runs good
Yeah, so that's a
and dependable. I mean,
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I've seen flatheads that are snotty and vicious and make horsepower, but you can't drive in California.
yeah.
And yours, you do.
Yeah, so that car has about 20,000 miles on it. It's a 39 Merc block. It's been bored 125 over, and then it's got a 4 1/8 crank in it. So it's a 284 cubic inch motor. It's about 9-to-1 compression. It's got a Winfield cam in it. It started off with 3.2s, but I dialed it back to 2.2s. It actually ran better with 2 clamps on it.
That doesn't surprise me a bit.
But just a all-around, just very dependable engine.
Yeah.
The short block was built by H&H, Mike Herman.
Yeah.
Did the short block. And then I got it from him, and I buttoned up the pan because I put a full flow oil filter on it for road trips.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, cylinder heads and everything like that.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. Now do you run a modern transmission in that?
Yeah, so that's got a T5.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of T5s.
When you did that what year did you build that car?
2010 to 2012.
Okay, that was pretty early for the T5 stuff. That's when it was first coming on.
Yeah.
Guys were figuring that out.
Yeah, the T5 is a great transmission. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that you can just grab any T5 and put it behind an engine, and that's not the case because you'll quickly be disappointed.
I've seen that in action.
Yeah, the gear ratios make or break a T5.
Okay.
And the gear ratio that everybody should get is what's called a 295, and that's what came in V8 Mustangs and Camaros. It's a close ratio box.
Yeah.
And it makes, I'll say, a lower horsepower car, like a flathead, a blast to drive. It turns into a sports car.
Okay, yeah.
And the cool thing, too, about that gear set is there's a lot of fifth gears to choose from.
Yeah.
So that car had a close ratio box in it, and it, you know, it only made maybe 200 horsepower, but anybody that rode in that car wouldn't have thought it only had 200 horsepower.
That's what I mean. I've been around your car.
Yeah.
I've seen you take off in it,
Yeah.
and it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, it rips.
Yeah.
I was following you in my S10 the one day, and it's gone. It
Yeah.
just takes off.
A
And
couple people rode with you at the hill climb, and they came back pretty surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
And-
fact, at the hill climb, the best one was there was a guy who I don't think had a flathead yet. And, he was a small block guy. And I took him for a ride up the hill. And right after we launched, I seen him. He took his left hand over and he grabbed onto the top irons, like, hold on.
Yeah. That's
Once-
excellent.
And once we were done, he was up on the flathead then.
Man, that's cool. Now, the hill climb's in Colorado.
Yep, just west of Denver.
What's that little town?
Central City.
Central City.
So it started in Georgetown, which is a little bit further
I was
west.
thinking it started with a G, so
Yeah.
that makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah. So 1953 was the first year. It was a sanctioned event. It ran, I think, for 53 and 54.
In 53 and 4, was it more like, because a lot of hill climbs was it more like sports cars and Heelys and that kind of stuff, or was it always hot rods?
I think it was pretty hot rod
Hot
based.
rod.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
it was 32s and stuff running.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
And I think the road was dirt then, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it was a dirt road.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
Guanella Pass.
Granella Pass, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Mike Nicholas relaunched the hill climb in 2013 on the what would it be, the 60th anniversary, and in Georgetown. We didn't go to it till 2015. That was the last year they had it in Georgetown because they just overgrew it. It's a very small old mining town. The restaurants close like at 9 p.m.
Okay. Now, by this hill climb, explain it to people that might not know what that is. I mean, obviously you guys race up a hill, but they shut down the streets for this?
Yep. So when it was back in Georgetown, we raced up the actual Guanella Pass, the same pass.
How long of pass is it? We're talking a couple miles?
Yeah, it was probably close to maybe 3 miles, I'd bet.
Cool.
It's paved now, so it's a little more friendly on cars. But, back in the day, it was a timed, sanctioned event. And
a lot of, is it a lot of switchbacks and like
yes, very technical.
Cool time? Okay, cool.
Very technical, 10 mile an hour curves.
Yeah, all the way almost to a dead stop.
Yeah, yep.
That's the way a hill climb should be. You know, some big straightaways, some big sweepers, and then almost come to a dead stop to make the turn.
Yeah. So when Mike relaunched it, we're going up the same pass. Technically, I think it's exhibition because I'm sure from a liability reason we can't race for times. Yep. But it's for vintage vehicles. Mike's fairly firm on vintage powertrains, so
that's another thing I'm going to ask you about because everything in that event is period correct early stuff.
So we're talking flatheads, 4-cylinders, V8s, 6-cylinder GM engines are pretty big there.
Okay.
So that's maybe one overhead valve. He will let some small blocks run, but I think more or less he keeps that kind of tight and controlled to make sure it doesn't get out of control.
Yeah.
Obviously, a small block you can start making some serious power.
Oh yeah. I would not want me there in my sedan in my 20s at all. It would just I'd be the guy that ruins it for everyone. And I've wondered that as far as because I've seen 6-cylinders going up, and 6-cylinders make some pretty big horsepower.
I think one of the fastest
that blue
cars,
coupe, or is it a coupe?
It's that Roadster.
Roadster.
Yeah,
that thing's a rocket.
Yeah, it flies.
I saw him at the Race of Gentlemen.
Yeah.
And it's fast.
Yeah.
And it runs. It's a 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
They run good.
Yeah.
That's cool. Now with that event, it's obvious. It's like the Race of Gentlemen. It's a period event. It's exhibition, but you're still having fun. You're still going fast. What other things do they do there? I've heard they do a reliability run.
So Friday there's like a 100-mile reliability run to the mountains, and that's actually my favorite part of the weekend. It's cool to do the hill climb, but you show up on Friday, the first stop, and they give you basically a map, and it's all back roads, so
you can't figure it out on your phone
you
where you're going.
Really?
So you're like,
that's cool.
So you gotta have a navigator.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And we go everywhere in Golden, which I think
is it just A and B spot, or is there checkpoints along the way?
Checkpoints
really?
everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so we start in Golden, which is like 8,500 feet, and then we wind up at Echo Lake, which is I think 11,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So, and there's long grades. You're really pushing the car. It's not like a local reliability run. You're really stressing the vehicle. So,
okay, cool, man. And then the elevation change alone is going to mess with early cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice it a lot in the years you've done it?
Oh yeah. So the first year we took the Roadster, and I was kind of naive because I'd never been in Colorado before. I thought, well, I know the car won't run the best, but it'll get by. And I got it out there with 3 carbs on it, and it ran absolutely horrible. So when we went back the following year, I retuned the car to go out there, and that's when I went from 3 carbs to 2.
That would make sense. You're running less air.
Yeah,
you're way higher. So you've not only are you already rich, now you've taken air out of the equation. It's just worse. Dumping fuel in that thing. Okay. Yes.
So when we went back with 2 carbs, car ran actually really good back here at our elevation, and out there it ran, I'd say 90%. So I was very happy with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting to think about the guy. My brain immediately goes to Pikes Peak because I know with Pikes Peak those guys have since day one. That's been what you fought. Smokey Yunick's book talks about it.
Yeah.
The Unser's books, all those books talk about tuning for the mountain. And do you tune for the bottom, do you tune for the middle, or do you tune for the top?
Yeah.
And a lot of them guys would decide where they were the fastest. If they were the fastest in the middle, that's what they tuned for, and then just limp it through the rest of it.
Yeah.
Now, and then Ray Everham, he's got the Ghost out there. And I talked to him at length about it when we were at Pocono. And he was, obviously today's cars have on-the-fly tuning. That car makes adjustments all the way up. But even he was still saying that things change.
Oh, yeah.
The brakes wear different. The tires, when he left I think when he said at starting line, they had preheated the tires with heaters on the tires.
Yeah.
And they dropped the car, literally like second in line. They drop the car, they take the tire heaters off. They leave the line, the tires were, 150 degrees, whatever they were. It was... I think he said it was in the 80s at the starting line, and when they got to the top, it started snowing.
Oh, wow.
So think about that.
Wow.
You think about to go from 80-degree weather to snowing in one run.
Yeah.
everything's going to change.
Oh yeah. Well, with the car too, but with your body.
Oh
it's
yeah,
change.
yeah. Everything's going to change.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating race. And then you think about the guys that were doing that in the 30s and 40s
Yeah.
and open cars and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's cool that the hill climb they're doing that event. And is it? They outgrew Georgetown, or is it still getting bigger and bigger every year?
So Mike does a pretty good job of keeping a cap on it.
Good.
He doesn't see the dollar sign, so to let it just blow up.
That's the biggest problem.
Yep.
It is.
So-
I fear that will happen to every event.
Yep.
The Race of Gentlemen's done a great job at trying to keep things under wrap, but even that event, the first time Jenny and I went, my main thing was I told Jenny, we have to go to this event now because it might not be this event
Yeah.
in 5 years.
That's what we did. The same thing.
And I explained to Jenny, like, these events change. Bulletproof. Not that particular show, but shows like that. 100-car pile up,
Yeah.
Bulletproof. All those shows started out so cool, and they might be amazing now to some people. But I guarantee you 50% or more of the people that were there at the beginning
Yeah.
are not happy about where those events have went.
Yeah.
And that's just a taste thing.
Yep.
More power to them if they're growing and they're doing good and they're successful. I'm sure the first couple of years of like the NSRA Street Rod Nationals and Good Guy shows, there were guys that were like, this is going to get too big and it's going to suck. And, now that's just part of it.
Yeah.
So that's cool that the guy keeps a cap on it.
Yep.
I know Mike Whitney and all those, and Barrelero and all them
Yeah,
from Cincinnati,
we
they all
made a
went.
big trip.
Yeah.
They said and this is exactly what I expected. The trip was funner than the event. They said the event was awesome, but their trip was it,
Yeah.
and they did it right. They camped out every night.
Yeah, that was
They
cool.
drove 4 or 5 hot rods out there. Nathan with the 13.5 coupe, and then the Root Boys went.
Yeah.
And that was a maiden voyage on the Root
Yeah.
Boys
They
car.
just got that car done.
They're crazy.
They started off like no miles in that car, but they drove out there and they camped out every night, and they said they reliability. And Hammer Hank went
Yeah.
with his,
Yep.
and they said the trip out was a blast,
Yeah.
and it is. I think back of all the hot rodding years in my sedan, and the trips were the fun part.
Oh, yeah.
Driving that
Yep.
thing to all over the country, that was the fun part. I know you guys go out to California a lot, and because of some of the builds your dad has done, you guys have close ties with the museums out there and with builders out there.
We have
Tell-
quite a few friends out there.
Yeah,
We
is that where you guys got?
we got married
I was
out at the
gonna say,
NHRA
tell us about
Museum,
that.
and we had we didn't have any of our
That's-
family there. It was all
Yeah.
it was 100 hot
I got
rodders
it.
from the LA Roadster show. So.
I'm telling Jenny now, they met at the basement at Detroit,
Detroit, too.
and
Yeah,
they got
same
married
as
in the
you
NHRA
guys.
Museum. And you and I met in the basement of Detroit and got married at the Henry Ford
Yeah,
Museum.
there you go.
But yeah, I remember you guys showing me pictures of your wedding, and I thought, how do you pull that off?
Yeah.
You get married at the
I
NHRA Museum.
I still don't know. We actually finished. We had Sid. The Roadster went out there to finish the interior, so we flew up there, picked it up, drove down Highway 101,
Highway 1.
and we got married at the museum. And
That's cool,
Yeah.
guys.
It was during LA Roadster show, so all our friends were
Yeah.
out there.
Well, yeah,
so
yeah.
We had people like Robert Williams, Pete Eastwood, Derek Bauer, Schroeder's.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Everybody.
How far does your dad and Gary Schroeder go back?
I think the Golden Sub.
Okay.
So not that far.
Okay.
But actually, Dad's
I know they're close.
doing a car for Gary right now.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I know you. Do you guys know how many trips you guys have been to California hot
No
rods?
idea.
Every year for the last 10 years?
Quite a bit.
Do you
Yeah.
guys only go once a year or twice, a couple times?
It depends.
Yeah, it depends.
What do you guys prefer to go to for the Roadster show?
Grand National.
Yeah, that's a
but-
lot of fun. So
yeah,
it's it's a getaway from the Michigan winter.
Yeah.
That can
That's
be
yeah.
pretty
But
brutal.
our travel was so bad last year, flying out there, that we might
Was
take
that the
a year
one you put the
out.
car in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I did the map for you guys
Yeah.
on that.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
That's another thing. Tell us about what you pulled off there. 'Cause
So, yeah.
first
so-
of all, start with what that award is. It's the America's most
yeah,
beautiful roadster.
America's Most Beautiful Roadster.
It's
and-
level with the Riddler. I mean, it's that
Yeah,
prominent.
and I guess just to be clear, so we put the car in for competition, but we didn't seriously put the car in for competition.
We wanted a good spot.
Yeah, we wanted a good park. We just wanted a good parking spot.
That's excellent.
And I was kind of hesitant to do it, but our friend Daryl Hollenbeck, who painted that car, said, "Just put it in there. That way you're guaranteed to be, have a good parking spot."
Yeah, that's a good theory.
But so that started. We did kind of a cool road trip in that car last year. Yeah, it was last year, right? We drove to the Hot Rod Hill Climb from Detroit.
Man.
So, and then instead of heading back east after the hill climb, we just kept going west. So we went to Bonneville. We'd never seen
My
Bonneville
favorite.
before.
That was cool.
We got to see actually the tail end of the USFRA racing, the
Oh,
fall
wow.
racing. Stayed at
that-
the Gold Nugget. Which
Was that the rocket cars, the big cars, or what was going on for that event?
So, no, that was the Winter Nationals just a little bit after that.
Okay.
So this was like a state sanctioned
Yeah.
racing event.
Cool.
Um,
I knew that there's. I mean, Bonneville every year, third week of August is the speed week.
Yep.
But that's not the only time they run there.
Correct.
They run there a lot.
Yeah.
And I've had other people say they just happen to stop in and there's running going on.
Yeah, I mean, we pulled up to the...
That might be one of the better events to go to, really.
Yeah.
Because the speed week's gotten out of hand.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
another event that's
Yeah.
gotten wet.
But, so yeah, we got to see Bonneville, got to see a sunrise on the Salt, which was...
Good.
Very
That's
cool.
that's everything.
Took
Yeah.
some cool pictures. And
Yeah, and...
I will say it here again. Everybody that goes to Bonneville, no matter what you do, no matter what your plans are, plan to see the sunrise one day.
Mm-hmm.
Sunrise on the Salt is a different thing.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite thing I've ever done. Like all the car stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to show Jenny.
Yeah.
It's a neat thing.
Yeah.
It's just it's like you're on a different planet. Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then you went on to California.
Yeah, so we went into, kept driving west, went into Sacramento, and
Visited
down
a bunch of
yeah,
shops.
the shops, seen people,
Bill Ganal, Daryl,
yeah.
Sid.
Tell me some good. There might not be any good stories because you build such damn good hot rods. Tell me about some stuff that's went wrong on the highway when you drive 32 Fords across country.
So that trip actually went pretty well. The only thing I had happen was I lost my tack drive on my tack. I twisted off the pin in the crank, but I had a spare one, so I fixed it. But
Okay.
The Rodfather tour when I was gonna fly home.
yeah, so,
Oh, you had enough. Huh?
so that was
Yeah.
that was freshly married. A few months
freshly
into
married. Like
yeah,
beginning of road trips
Yeah.
for us.
we did a 2,400-mile circle across the Midwest
In the Roadster.
in the Roadster, like in about 8 days.
Jeez.
And we were driving from Michigan to Kansas City because oftentimes
What time of year?
September. So
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so not terrible.
Not
Pretty
terrible.
Good time to do it.
And most of our road trips somehow wind up with Kansas City being kind of a midpoint. It works out good because I can see my parents.
Yeah.
It's a free place to stay. If you got to do some, a pit stop, do some work on a car. I got my dad's garage
Yeah.
to work on. So we were driving, it's an 800-mile drive in one day. So
That's a hammer.
yeah, we definitely don't mess around.
600 in a day is getting it.
Yeah.
So 800, that's
Yeah,
a run.
and we got 80 miles out of Kansas City, stopped and got fuel. And I get back on I-70 on the on-ramp, and just as I shift the car in the fifth gear, I hear like this really tinny noise. Almost sounded like you threw something heavy in like a metal wastebasket. And I could tell it was like from the left front of the car.
Okay.
So I kind of hang my head out the window, and I'm looking at the left front tire because I'm thinking, all right, tire's getting ready to blow. And I get the car on the shoulder, and I'm slowing it down, and just as the car comes to a stop, the top of the wheel tips in.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, all right.
This isn't independent suspension.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah. And I popped the hubcap off, and it's got all the tapered rollers in it. The outer wheel bearing came apart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that one stopped us in our tracks.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So that 80
Did it
mile...
destroy the spindle and everything?
It actually friction welded the inner race onto the spindle.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, so that 80 miles of Kansas City was on a rollback, and fortunately we had AAA.
Oh, yeah, true. I always, the AAA's got my back.
The best $120 to spend a year if you're going to make cross-country drives.
If you got hot rods and
Yep.
you're driving cross country, just get a gold card and be done.
Yep. So that night we got to my parents, and with a die grinder and a chisel, I'm getting the inner race off, and then we had to find bearings
Yeah.
because we were leaving like in 2 days.
Were you running early Ford
Yeah,
stuff?
early Ford stuff. So it's 40 brakes, stock, 37 to 41 round back spindles.
AutoZone's got that shit. Come on.
But I lucked out. Another friend in Kansas City had some bearings.
Cool.
So he spotted me bearings, and I bought him new ones to replace his, and got back on the road. After that trip, I carried a spare set of bearings in the back.
Yeah.
But on that stuff, vintage stuff, right? Flathead stuff, you can't walk in the Pep Boys and buy anything.
That's my biggest that's my biggest reason of always I mean, I grew up in a Chevy family. You guys know how my dad and I are with 327 Chevys.
Yep.
But I flaunt that to people that are building their first hot rod of, man, just put a small block Chevy in it because there's not a part on it you can't buy at any AutoZone, any part of the country. The flip side is you guys that run flatheads and like Joey Kerr with his nailhead and stuff like that, you're not going to get a water pump
exactly so, anywhere. So anything that you can think of that you might need, quick turnaround, so anything for ignition system, I'll carry a whole distributor because it's easier to swap a distributor than it is to swap points.
Yeah, true. I know Joey carries Joey carries a water pump. Maybe a distributor, I think. Yeah.
Gaskets, tire tubes.
We run radial or bias
tires. Yeah. A pretty extensive toolkit.
Do you run quick change in that Roadster?
Yeah, had a real
quick change and everything. Yeah. They're pretty decent though.
Yeah, I've never had an issue with it.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Right now.
But I have a rebuttal for your small block.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Coming back from the hill climb.
Because there's a lot of guys here on the listeners that are not small block guys.
Coming back from the hill climb one year, we were traveling, and one of our friends had a small block powered 36 Ford. Broke a rocker arm, stamped steel rocker arm.
Yes.
Out in western Kansas.
Yes.
We had to drive 150 miles to find a parts store that had a rocker arm.
Yep. I'm just saying a lot because we went through that at Bowling Green one year. Trying to remember who it was. It was one of our buddies. Someone we knew. Small block Chevy broke a rocker arm, and the spare display engine in the back of Dad's Hillborn truck? Those heads had like 6 rocker arms on them still, and that managed to get him home.
Yeah.
And from that day, Dad and I both looked at each other and said, "We better carry a rocker arm."
Yeah, I'm right there. So in the 5 window that's got a small block, I carry a spare roller rocker and a push rod and a poly lock.
I mean, you hope you never get that deep, but that's not deep. I mean, if trust me, if you're on the side of the road and that's all it takes to get you home, that's pretty minor.
Yeah.
What else is there? I mean, do you carry a spare tire on these big trips?
I think you have before.
I have when I first started.
Because that's another thing that's
Roadster.
hard because you're running such big rears and small fronts.
Yeah. When we first started taking the Roadster on road trips, I would actually throw a front tire in the trunk. It'd fit.
Yeah.
Never had to use it, and finally I kind of decided, if it was really bad enough, you could get something overnighted.
Yeah.
So, I had spares at home, and chances are.
Plus, we're back to AAA. I mean, it's yeah.
Dan would usually be back in town, so if we had to get something, he could run to the house and get it overnighted.
Yes. You mentioned your 5 window. Tell me how that car came about. That's a real steel 5 window 32 coupe.
Yep. So my friend from back home, John Swander, has Mark Morton's old Jive 5 window.
Wow.
Very cool car. It was built in the second rendition of Hop Up. The car's just got a lot of character, and I got to drive that car in 2012. It's a 327 small block car. Pete Eastwood built the chassis underneath it. It's got a 3-speed, stock Ford driveline, and there was something about that car, just the character of it. I really liked the way it looked, so I knew.
Is it fendered?
Yeah, it's fendered car.
Because your 5 window is fendered, and it's one of the. I'm a high boy fan, but God, I love your car with fenders.
Yeah.
I do. Go ahead. And you pull it off, man.
Yeah. So I figured I'd never be able to buy that car. One, because I doubt John would sell it, and 2, probably if he wanted to sell it, I wouldn't have the funds to buy it.
Yeah,
so
you're buying history there.
Yeah.
That's a different animal.
Exactly. So we kind of started looking for a 32 5 window, and it just happened to look out. A friend from Austin, Texas, had a Highboy, and we made a deal to buy it. He actually wasn't really looking to sell it, but we started talking over a few months, and he decided to sell it. He wanted to build a Jive 5 inspired car.
Cool.
So it kind of worked out because he wasn't going to use it, but he liked the idea that we were going to do something that he would have done.
Yeah. And that's part of it. When it's going to a good home.
Yep.
That's sealed deals with me before.
Yeah, and it's just a nice, really hot rod, unboxed 32 frame, flathead, 39 box, Hella brand in it, unchopped, full hood. We took that car to Race a Gentleman in 14, I think.
Whatever year you
Whenever,
guys.
yeah, because you were the first guy I raced there.
Yeah.
That was the first year I went, and we had neither of us knew what we were doing. And I remember you and I found you, and I'm like, because we don't know any. I didn't know anyone there. I knew, I hadn't met Bobby yet, and I didn't know Mel. I didn't know anyone there.
Yeah.
And I just remember going to you like, do you know how this works? And you're like, not at all. And I remember at some point you and I were both like, let's just go up to the line up and let's just run. And that was cool because I've looked back at those pictures before, and it's when I got a beard, and your coop's next to me in line, and I remember I smiled because I'm thinking like we were both so lost, we had no idea what we were doing.
I remember you were like airborne.
Oh yeah, it was rough. And that car got to bouncing, and Dad's car's got like old Ford shocks on it that are junk, and it was, it got to the point where I quit running it because I'm thinking I've done what I came to do. And all we're going to do now is eat shit here real bad, and it's not going to end well.
Yeah, but you know, that was kind of cool because that's probably one of the first few times I got to meet you because that was when you and your dad came over and put letters on, you put numbers on the car, remember?
Yeah. Where did we do that?
At our house. You came down.
Oh, okay.
All right, I guess you came up, right?
Yeah, we came up and put letters on it. Yeah, that's cool. What project was I doing that I stayed at your guys' house? It's before I met you, Jenny. Was it the SoCal coupe?
It was the Remington car.
No.
Remington.
You know,
Remington.
I'm sorry. It might have been the Streamliner.
Yeah.
You did the Remington car too?
I forgot about the Remington car. I love that car. I forgot about that car. Let's
so
talk
cool.
about those cars for a second. Your dad builds, I hesitate to even call them tribute cars or recreations. Mm-hmm. He builds the real car. And I don't know how... It's what your dad does. What I'm getting at is your dad will pick a very famous car that's iconic car that's just got beautiful lines. Your dad's really good at picking out good cars, and maybe with like the Phil Remington car, the car's gone. We don't know what happened to it. It got destroyed. You guys do know what happened to it, but it's gone. It's gone for history. And your dad decides to rebuild the car because, for one, it's cool and it's neat. But I love that he rebuilds it because none of us sitting in this room will ever get to see that car unless your dad built it. We can look at pictures all day long, but none of us ever got to see that car when it was real. And so the only way for us to experience it is for someone to recreate it. And your dad does that. He does an amazing job. I remember with the Remington car, I think I found him the T chassis or one of the T chassis.
I believe so, yeah.
And
you
one
found
of
a
the
lot
axles.
Of parts
and I just remember how picky your dad was about it has to be
nice.
This part, and it has to be nice, and it has to be the right one. Like, not close. It's got to be this one.
Yep.
And that was right up my alley because that's with restoring Indy cars. Shit's got to be right.
Oh yeah.
And so he builds these.
Them old guys will point it out.
Oh yeah.
That are still around.
Yeah, I can't wait to be one of those old guys. So your dad builds these cars. He built the Phil Remington car. How did he pick that car? And did he know Phil Remington before he started?
He didn't know Phil before he started. I think he's seen it in a book. And
it was the Birth of Hot Rodding.
Birth of Hot Rodding on the cover.
Yeah, with the Mercury emblem on it.
On the nose,
He wanted to do it.
God,
and
so cool.
I think he got a hold of Phil through Gary Schroeder.
Okay.
And
That's another thing that by your dad building that car, it introduced a lot of us to Phil Remington today.
And Phil was the man. He worked
Holy
for
shit.
Shelby and Gurney.
Yeah. I mean, he was, we all...
And he's the most humble. He was the most humble guy you'd ever meet.
To that point, I just knew, this guy named Phil Remington built this cool hot rod back in the day, and he ran it at El Mirage in Bonneville, and that's it. Then you find out this guy's still working at the top race shops in the world, doing the most hardest, tedious work in the shop.
Yeah, he was working for Gurney up till his death.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yep, they left his workbench there still with all his
Did
tools
they?
laid out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. So now, and I remember your dad built that car, and I got to do the numbers on it.
Yeah.
And when your dad was building that car and he got to meet Remington gave him a stack of timing tags. Yep. And I remember your dad telling me that Remington had told him that to them back in the day, those didn't mean shit. No. They were literally dash black studs.
Yep. Yeah. Shim stocks.
He used the shim stock. Yeah. And your dad gave me one, and I still have it. In fact, we installed it on my dad's sprint car. Okay. Because I didn't want it loose in a cabinet somewhere that it might. Who knows?
Get lost.
Yeah, he might get lost. So I'm like, if I bolt his dad's dash, it'll stay there.
I mean, he handed them to him the first time we met him at.
Really?
He came to He came to Gary Schroeder's because we had the sub there. So Dad wasn't doing the car yet. I met Phil at the door of the shop, and I told him, it was nice to meet him, and my dad's so excited to do the car. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't know why, but
That's cool.
But he was just the stories he had, and he was so humble. And
Now, was he really good at remembering how stuff was on the car?
Oh, yeah, he would.
Good.
Dad would ask how something was. In like a week or so, we'd get a drawing, and it was like to scale of the gas cap.
It was like an engineered, hand sketched, draft.
Oh, that's so cool.
We have them all.
God, what I wouldn't give to have, when you're restoring one of these old Millers.
He was the best to work with of all.
Cool. That's cool. And when did he pass away?
Oh, it was like
13 or 14?
Somewhere around that time frame.
He just turned 90, so.
And still working.
Yeah.
So that was the Remington car. Mm-hmm. And we'll come back to the submarine. But after the Remington car, your dad, I remember him telling me that he enjoyed recreating a car with that much history so much. He enjoyed recreating the car, but he enjoyed all the process and meeting Remington and talking to people that knew the car and then researching the car. He liked that.
Yep. And
so
out of that, we got to meet Stu Hilborn too, which was a treat.
Wow, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So then, was the next car your dad did the SoCal Streamliner?
Yeah.
Now
Alex kind of came to him and was like, at the party, he's like, "Why don't you do my car?" So we did. So.
Now that car was that. I'm trying to remember my history now. Did that car completely go away, or was it built into something different? Or did it turn into the tank?
A little bit of both, sort of. So there's the classic SoCal belly tank that everybody knows, the car that's restored. There's actually a belly tank for that car.
Okay.
And that car, I believe, was V860 powered, T-frame. And they ran that at Bonneville, late 40s, and then they rebuilt the car into a Streamliner. And that came about because Dean Batchelor was in the war. I'm pretty sure he was a prisoner of war. Mm-hmm. And during that time, he got to see pictures of the was it auto car that became Audi.
Yeah.
They had those streamlined cars.
Yeah, they were.
That ran on circle tracks.
Yes.
High speed. So he was inspired by streamlining.
Yeah.
And so they rebuilt the first SoCal belly tank into a Streamliner. So it still had the T chassis. And during that time, they pulled the V860 out and put a full-size flathead in it.
And to clarify, when a lot of people today that might not know the history or they're just going by what they know, when you say Streamliner, people think of these big, long, pointy rocket-looking cars. And this wasn't that. This was stock wheelbase Streamliner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a full Jocko-looking body.
Yeah,
like
so
that.
This was really one of the first Streamliners.
I say Jocko-looking. This was way before Jocko.
Yeah.
But
so,
yeah.
I mean, it was a new concept for those guys because, prior to that, everybody thought you had to get as much frontal area off the car to go faster. Well, this was the opposite idea, right? It's more frontal area. You want to close up everything, cover the wheels, cover all the suspension. Even though you increase frontal area, you actually reduce drag.
Really? That was the theory behind that?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because I know, in your head, if you look at the front of a car and turn it into a silhouette, that's the size hole you're going to poke through the air.
Exactly.
And the smaller that hole, the quicker it should be.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Unless you got a big, bunch of wheels and tires and axles and brakes that are all...
There's a lot of turbulence there, creating drag.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So what year was that now? It was 48?
I think it was 49, if I remember correctly. It ran 49.50, and I think 50 it was the fastest car on the Salt.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was like 212 and
It won
some
the
change.
Bonneville Trophy that year.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
It's actually on the Bonneville Trophy.
Yeah, so...
Because you think about what else was also running. I mean, there was tankers, belly tanks running. There was a lot of shit running.
Yeah, so if you look at, an SCTA award today, that's a Streamliner on the top.
SoCal
yeah.
That's a SoCal car.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yep.
And now, that car, it ran those 2 years, and I know that car crashed. It flipped.
Did. So it wrecked, I think, actually twice, if I'm not getting my cars confused.
Yeah,
but it was totaled at a race on Daytona Beach.
Okay.
It was down there for some NASCAR exhibition thing.
Doesn't surprise me.
And car totaled. The guy that was driving it got hurt badly. And pretty much that, back in that time, there was no effort in saving a car, right? So They saved what they could off of it. They saved, a
They
quick
want
change.
they want the running gear, and that's about it.
Yeah, and so that stuff wound up in the current SoCal belly tank that everybody's famous with.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then, and that's how it came about that your dad wanted to recreate that car.
Yep.
Is that the one that had the weird steering wheel that you found? You figured out?
Yeah,
It was
that
a
was,
B-26 bomber steering yoke.
Okay, see, that's part of the what your dad enjoys and what I enjoy
yeah.
with those
Yeah.
cars is once you decide, like, okay, this is a cool car that I'm going to recreate. Then you go down the rabbit hole of, well, what gauges did it have?
Yeah.
And how are you going to find that out?
Yeah.
You're going to research and try to find pictures, and those pictures might not be in books. So then you're going to go to guys like Alex and SoCal. Do you have any pictures
Yeah.
of the gauges? And I remember when they were doing that car, your dad sent me a picture of that steering wheel. And it was this like weird steering wheel that wasn't a complete circle. It was like cut off.
Yep.
And I immediately thought like, oh, that's probably an old 50s boat steering wheel.
Yeah.
Because it had that look. But it makes sense that it was a
Yeah,
bomber
so-
I
steering
forgot
wheel.
how we found that. And the
Well-
guy's like, I have it hanging on my wall.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
I mean, we look
Really?
like,
Yeah.
but I mean that's the challenge with those cars.
Yeah.
You can't cut corners. If you
Yeah.
need a part, you got to find the part
Or make it.
Yeah.
or make it. And I think we looked for like maybe close to a
while,
year,
yeah.
and I
Before
came
it
across a
started.
thread on the Ham where a guy had like talked about buying the steering wheel and wanted to figure out how to adapt it to his car, and like it pretty much it ended at like he wasn't going to do it. So I wrote him, and this thread was like years old. I go, hey, and I read him a message. I go, would you happen to have that steering wheel still? And if so, would you sell it?
Yeah.
And fortunately, he did.
That's cool. That's very
Yeah.
cool. I'm going to come back to this question, but let's move on to the next car your dad did. What's he done since that?
The Beast.
Yeah.
Beast
The
4.
Beast, that's
Yep.
okay.
The Chet Herbert Beast
Chet
4.
Herbert Beast
Now
4.
that's a car that still exists, but in a different form.
So, what I say is, the fact that a car exists is a double-edged sword. It's cool that it exists,
It was bad.
but
In bad shape,
but
so.
it raced all the way
Yeah.
up to I think till the early '90s.
Yeah.
So it evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not everyone's evolutional work
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
top notch.
Well, and sometimes parts of the car aren't the original car, right?
Yeah.
Because the wheelbase was stretched and short and stretched and short.
They put like 3 motors
They
in
had
it.
3 small blocks in it at one point.
Yeah.
And
You
they
know.
ran it up until 80.
Wow.
In the 80s,
Yeah.
right?
Jeez.
It was 4-wheel drive at one time with 2 Chryslers in it.
And you think about all those different changes, how many times it gets cut up, welded, and
Yeah.
drilled, and brackets here and
Yeah.
there. So,
It's re-chassied.
yeah. And then at some point, you got to decide what are we going to save, what are we not going to save.
Exactly.
So, now, what is left of the car is what's the story on that car? Because I don't want to get it wrong.
It was donated to the NHRA Museum in the form that it was in.
Yep.
And we went to see it, and it was pretty much gone.
Yeah,
Dad got the job.
Yeah, so basically, only body panels
Yeah.
were
Okay.
what remained of the first iteration.
The
of
wheel.
car.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
saved the wheel pods.
Okay.
On
Yeah.
it. So.
Yep. Yeah. Because that's cool. That car had a lot of interesting parts. Tell us about the rear end in that car. Because I remember we looked forever.
Yeah, it was a
I was,
Pat Warren.
I was looking too.
Yeah, Pat
We were
Warren.
looking at Hershey.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
hunting Hershey. We were anyone with any kind of old speed equipment.
Yeah.
We were showing them pictures.
Yep, there's a Pat Warren 2-speed quick change.
What was Pat Warren's story? Just another guy that was doing quick changes.
Yeah, made quick changes. He made Model A based quick changes, V8 based quick changes, and these 2-speed quick changes.
Did you ever find one?
Yeah,
Okay.
Dan found one. So fortunately, from a external dimension standpoint, they're similar to Hillebrand.
Okay.
So Dan could get going, mocking up the car with a Hillebrand in place.
Okay.
And then once he found the real Pat Warren, it dropped right in.
Okay. Well, did you guys didn't you make one? What did you make?
So he went down the path actually trying to make one.
Yeah.
And then
Because I remember seeing your CAD drawings and stuff
yeah.
of it. And it
Well,
was,
so that's another.
That's a bell housing.
Yeah, bell
Yeah.
housing.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
going to say there's something that you guys made.
Yeah. So
And did Curtis?
Curtis
yeah,
machined
Mike
it.
Curtis
Yeah.
machined it. So that car had a 331 Chrysler in it. It was bored and stroked to something else, but so it was this Chrysler engine set nose down in there, and I think they set it down in there just to get the engine like under the bodywork.
Yeah.
And it had some weird bell housing, and there's actually some decent photos of the bell housing. And another thing we spent like a year researching,
Probably
right?
longer than that.
Yeah. So any old Chrysler guy we could think of, I was mailing photos to say, hey, does this look familiar?
We went to drag racing, people,
Yeah.
farmers.
Yeah, farmers.
all
So
kinds
what I
of-
found out was the early Chryslers had a SAE standardized bell housing bolt pattern. So once I learned that, it's like, well, this might not even be a Chrysler part.
Oh shit! Yeah.
It could be agriculture.
I'll say it could be John Deere bell
Yeah.
housing.
And so that one arrived at, we never got anywhere on finding out what it was. So it was kind of funny because Dan's like, well, I'm just going to make it. He's just going to build it out of like flat stock and stuff. And I go, I have an idea. Let me draw it in CAD. I'll model it in CAD. And let's see what it costs to get it machined.
Yeah.
And I think your dad was pretty adamant. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make it. So I ended up drawing it. So we had photos of the engine and the chassis, and I knew what the spark plug spacing was. The bore spacing on the engine. So I got a scale off of it.
Yeah.
And then basically modeled this bell housing in CAD, and sent it to Mike Curtis and said, hey, just ballpark, what would it cost to do this? And he got back to me like a week later, and it was definitely well worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's cool,
That's awesome.
It was a billet bell housing, and then Mike machined it, tapped all the holes, drilled holes, and then he shot peened it when it was done, and it looked like it was a cast.
Yeah, it makes it look cast.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. Now with that, I want to sidetrack real quick. You work for GM now, doing stuff like that. Tell me what you do.
So I've had a handful of different jobs at GM. It's a corporate job, but it's actually kind of cool because if you don't want to do the same thing for your whole life, you don't have to.
Cool.
So maybe every 2 or 3 years, if you can demonstrate that you know how to do this job, well, they'll give you an assignment of doing something else. So I've done everything from like doing vehicle testing where we run them over, rough roads, dirt roads, and stuff like that, to testing like in a lab where we'll have all these fixtures with robots and they're
Shaking them to death.
shaking
Yeah.
them. One of the really coolest jobs I had in my previous job was I worked on a high performance Camaro variant. It was the Camaro ZL1 1LE, kind of as like a program, kind of where I oversaw all the engineering into it.
Is that the one I got to see?
Yeah.
Wow. You were driving that one.
Yeah.
And driving it before it was available to public.
Yeah.
That was cool, man.
That car actually got more attention than any hot rod we ever
rod.
had.
Really?
Oh yeah. But it was a badass
I remember
car.
you had called me and said, hey, you need to see this thing. And then you had driven it to
Down to Vincetta.
Vincetta's, yeah. And that was a cool deal. You had explained kind of the guidelines of
Yeah, I mean, it's
what you're allowed to do, how you're supposed to act with that. And it was cool. It made sense.
Yeah.
Because everyone sees those spy photos. A photo gets released like, oh, I saw, the first picture of a new Corvette on the street. And there's theory to that of like what you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's
Because we're in Detroit and we could see some neat shit.
Yeah, I mean,
We'd end up on like YouTube.
Yeah,
on
YouTube,
videos.
yeah.
He'd be like, "Don't be on your phone in the car," or anything like that.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna end up.
You had told me that if someone sees it at a gas station and they're taking pictures, that's fine, but you are not supposed to open the doors and like show them the inside.
Stuff
Just
like
act like nonchalant and just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's some neat stuff, man. If you're a car guy and you're into new performance cars, it's cool to think about that those cars are out there, like the rear engine Corvettes we were seeing.
Yeah.
Those running around.
Yeah.
I saw a blue one, but way before they were out.
Yeah.
On 14 Mile.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that's fortunate about the area that we live in. We get to see a lot of that.
Cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Jenny saw one of the Ford GTs when it was in. It was all still just blacked out with no emblems.
Yep.
It was at a gas station.
Yeah.
She took a picture of it and sent it to me, and we were at. I was at Indy racing the Doran GT, and it was funny because she saw it and she said she talked to the guy and said, "Hey, I want to take a picture of your car. My husband's racing a Ford GT, and this kind of looks like it." And said the guy didn't say anything, take pictures,
Yep.
but you can bet he was thinking, "What the hell? Racing a Ford GT?" So that's cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was a neat car.
Yeah, that was a cool project. It was a bunch of like-minded, guys in the cars, some hot rodders and stuff, and
Some worked on the Bonneville
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, actually the
GM?
chief engineer of that car helped run the program like in the early 2000s when GM and SoCal Speed Shop did the Bonneville.
Oh yeah. Was it the HHR?
Yeah, they did HHR. They did a Cobalt.
I was in line when the HHR took a ride.
Yeah, they also built a 34 Ford Roadster with a 4-cylinder Ecotec.
Oh yeah, I remember that car.
Which still blows my mind that General Motors built a 34 Ford.
Yeah, you'd think they would have.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in line with Shine's Roadster when the HHR crashed.
Yeah.
And that was a bad deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was fine, but just a bad, scary deal.
Yeah.
Because we were in line, we were backing up the record, and so was the HHR. And we were next in line, and Jimmy was in the car, and I was getting ready to pull his belts down, final, and button him in. And they came over the radio, crash, 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 at the 3 mile marker. Yeah. Actually, it was the 7, and he was 300 mile an hour crash. And Jimmy threw his belts off and got out, and Tony Thacker and Jimmy took off in the rental car, and we just all stayed there with the car, with the race car, and they were expecting the worst.
Yeah.
Guy crashed at 300 mile an hour. It's not going to end well.
Yeah.
But he did. He was fine. That was a hell of a race car to take a crash like that, and the guy walked away.
And he was just a GM engineer. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure he still works for GM. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
The crosswinds out there do what they do.
Yep.
And that's interesting. So I liked hearing. I wanted to ask you about what you do because I knew you'd designed a lot and done a lot of cool stuff. So that made it possible for you to draw those things like the bell housing.
Yeah. So I've always had kind of interest in CAD work. I don't really do CAD stuff for GM for my day job, but
you drew my steering wheels.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking at the wall steering wheels, and you put those in the CAD so we could have them laser cut out.
Yeah, so like back in college, we had to do like CAD courses, and I just had a lot of interest in doing that. So right before I came over here, I was doing some CAD work.
Stuff for the 33.
Yeah, for the 33.
You designed did you design the wheels that Curtis machined?
No,
did Kurt?
Mike did those. But,
okay.
That was a great process. I basically just gave Mike pictures of real Hellebrands, which the replica copies on the market today don't quite look like real Hellebrands. And I wanted to look like real ones.
Yeah, you're right. They're a little off.
Yeah.
And you wanted the real deal. Yeah. That's cool. Those are one-off wheels on your Roadster. And for the price of Hellebrands today, it's not a big difference.
They're cheaper than Hellebrands.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's get back to your dad real quick because I want to talk about the submarine.
Okay.
If you're listening to this, you owe it to yourself to Google Dan Webb submarine.
Golden Submarine.
Golden Submarine. Harry Miller built a golden submarine race car for Barnyard Oldfield. And it kind of put him on the map, and that was over 100 years ago. And it was a closed cockpit aerodynamic race car back then. And Buck Bodeman recreated it with the original engine, and it's an iconic race car. And your dad decided to recreate it, but put a modern spin on it.
A hot rod version.
Yeah, and to tell someone that, it doesn't sound like a good idea.
No.
Like, I'm going to take this famous old race car, and I'm going to put a modern hot rod version on it. And if someone told me that, I'd just be like, oh, God, that's going to be terrible. But he pulled it off, and it's beautiful, if not better than the original. I mean, it's got now that had a Z-Tech like midget racing engine in it.
Yeah.
And that car, and now the really cool part of that car is it sits with the real submarine now.
Yeah.
The original Miller car and that car together. That's cool. And the Remington car.
Yep.
That's very cool.
Went to a good home.
Yes, it did. How long did your dad work on that car?
He took a little time off because my grandpa was ill, but probably 2 years.
Okay.
So it wasn't bad for a full build.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That car was amazing.
I was around it all the time, and I'd still find different details.
I remember I got to sit in it at Detroit. That was huge to sit in that thing. That was cool. What? Now back to your projects. You guys built the Roadster and you built the 5-window. Tell us about your current project.
So current car is a 33 5-window coupe. Really solid car we got out of Arizona.
What made you want a 33? Just did?
Yeah, 33 34s I think are really pretty cars.
They are. I agree.
Even though the 32 is the ultimate hot rod, the 33 34s are just They're beautiful cars.
You can say it. You wanted a ZZ Top car.
Yeah, ZZ Top car.
Because I do too. We all do.
I might have to get a keychain.
I know. I was just thinking
I got
that.
one.
I need to get you one.
Long story, but I got one through Bobby Alloway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the real deal.
Yeah.
I'll let you loan. I'll loan it to you so you can recreate it.
Yeah.
And you went with the 5-window.
Yeah. I'll say for 32s, my personal preference is a 5-window over a 3-window. However, 33, 34s, I'm impartial between the two. So I was looking both directions. I was actually hot and heavy on a 3-window project, but this 5-window came up. It was kind of interesting. I got photos of this 5-window for sale, and it wasn't like publicly listed for sale, but the guy was going to get rid of it. And I was like, man, it's a nice car, but I'm going to see what else is out there. And every time I'd come across something else, I'd go back and be like, man, that's a strong car for sale. And so finally, I called the guy and we talked about it and made an offer, and we were too far apart. So about a month later, I called back and we reached an agreement. And so I kind of bought the car sight unseen. I mean, I had photos. I had photos.
But we all know that.
Yep.
They can lie.
Yep, man. And plus, they were photos taken by an older guy, so they're not the most clear.
But we had a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah, we had mutual friends, so there was trust there.
Yeah.
So the first time I seen that car was when it showed up on a car carrier.
Wow.
Yeah.
But solid car. It's
I remember you called me and said it's here, and you were delighted. You were happy.
Yeah, it's a very nice car. It's rumored to be a Southern California car, but that's kind of like every small block's out of a Corvette.
Yep. And every old car in the field is a 32 Ford.
Yeah.
Every hot rod. That was a 32 Ford. Yep.
But obviously being from the out west, solid car. It's never been cut on. It's never been patched. Doesn't need any repair work. It's an old hot rod. The story is it used to have an Olds V8 Hydromatic and an Olds rear end. Still has a rear end in it, but it was last set up for a small block and a manual trans.
Okay.
So I'll walk that back. The firewall was cut on the car to fit the Olds. So I'm working on the car. We chopped it.
Yeah, Bill Ganal
Yeah,
and
so-
Dominique come back.
Yeah, so that's a cool side story too on that project. But it's going to get an early Cadillac, a 390 Cadillac,
Cool.
5-speed, and a Hella brand.
Good. How far did you chop it?
3 3/4 at the B pillar, and it's got a slight wedge. It's not the very dramatic wedge of a lot of cars today, but just a nice mild wedge.
Yeah. Every chop top has to have a little bit of wedge.
Yep.
It's just part of it.
Yeah. but on the chop, it was kind of cool because it went back to the 32 5-window. Back when we were moving that car from the Highboy iteration into a fendered version, I knew I wanted to chop the car, and I'm not really a sheet metal guy. And I chopped my 34 pickup in college, and it turned out pretty good. But a 34 pickup's a lot different than a 32 5-window.
Yeah.
And I thought about asking Dan for help, but Dan and I don't see eye to eye on some
How much something should be chopped.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe that's not a good idea.
Was Dan wanting to chop it way more, or just a
Way
little
less.
Way less.
like 1 inch
Yeah.
chop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny because we were down in Columbus, Good Guys. We were walking around, it's me and Ashley, and so we're like talking about this. And I go, it would be kind of nice to have somebody help. And I said, I wonder if I could ask Bill Ganal if he'd come back. And she goes, well, ask him. I go, well, I'll send him a text. I don't want to call him and put him on the spot. I'll send him a text message. So I send him this text. I go, hey, I want to chop my car. Would you be interested in helping me if I bought you a plane ticket to come back?
Yeah.
And he sends back, yeah.
Oh, shit, that was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were friends with Bill
Yeah,
from Daryl's
I was
car.
friends
You guys
with
were-
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bill came back and we had a long weekend and we, I'll say 80% chopped the car.
Man, that's cool.
So the same thing happened. The 33 came along and I kind of talked to Bill about this car because he was working on a 34 for a customer and so I told Bill about it and he's like, well, he goes, if you buy it, just let me know when I'm coming back.
Really?
And so
That's cool.
sure enough, last fall, that's what we did. So I flew Bill back and the guy that was from Donnie Welch.
We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I mean, we thrashed on it for 3 days, but
We go out.
yeah, each night we went out to our downtown to Clarkston.
Kurt's
and,
restaurant.
Yeah, to a Kurt Cotello.
Yeah.
He'd come out with his scrapbook that his dad had from the 60s.
Took
and
us to
stuff.
see the little Deuce Coupe.
Yeah,
all of
That's
us,
cool.
so
That's a side thing that a lot of people don't know. Is
You
that
need to have Kurt on too.
Yes,
That'd
I
be
would
great.
love that.
Yeah.
The Beach Boys' little Deuce Coupe
Yeah.
is right here,
It's right in
Right
Clarkston.
here.
10 minutes from
Clarkston,
us.
Michigan.
Yeah, that's cool.
And what's interesting is the Little Deuce Coupe, Kurt's dad actually didn't like that name. So the car's real name is the Silver Sapphire.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And so that car got its name from back here when his dad first started building it in Detroit. and the Alexander brothers helped him customize it.
That makes sense.
It
It
became-
looks like an Alexander
Yeah,
build.
it became the Silver Sapphire, and then his grandparents wanted him to go to college, and they were going to pay for him to go to college, and he figured if he was going to get to go to college, he was going to go to one of his choice. He went to one in Southern California where the hot rodding was, right?
Oh, yeah. Gotta
And-
have a theory to
Yeah,
this.
and took the car with him, and then that's when Barris further customized it, and that's when it got shot for the cover of Hot Rod. There's that
Okay.
iconic photo of
Yeah.
the car in the front of Hot Rod, and then there's his dad. He's kind of standing over the engine, like messing with throttle linkage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the exact same photo that became the Beach Boys album cover.
Really?
They
Just
cropped
zoomed
out
in?
his dad, but his hand's like still in the photo. and then that car basically acquired, that name of the Lotus Coupe. But
That's cool.
But his dad really wanted it to be called the Silver Sapphire.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. Man, that's cool. What's we're gonna wrap this up. What's your plans for the next big trip?
We don't have anything planned yet, really.
Yeah, probably nothing.
We're gonna thrash on the car a little bit for a while.
Work on the 34?
Yeah.
33 or 4?
33.
30. Yeah.
Three.
So I think this year will be a big year for thrashing on the 33. This winter, chassis build. I'm gonna do something new, torsion bar chassis, like sprint car style.
Yeah, good.
I've never done it before, but it interests me.
Good.
So
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
You'll like it.
And then
Joey Kerr's got that figured out.
yeah, and then the engine's kind of cool. It's with this Cadillac thing. I have a lot of ideas in the back of my head. I want to fuel inject it.
Good.
But I want to hide all the EFI bits.
Good.
And make my own intake for it. So
Good.
I'll be
When we get done with this podcast, I'm gonna tell you about all the Cadillac stuff I'm about to end up with.
Okay, great.
That I don't want.
Yeah.
Good, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Josh.
for
It's
having
been
us.
fun.
It's been fun.
When I moved up here 2 years ago, I didn't know anyone except Jenny, my wife, but I knew you guys were here, so I appreciate the friendship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Likewise.
you guys and Tony and now Al, Uncle Al. I gotta go
Oh, yeah,
have him
good.
on the podcast.
He'd have fun.
Oh,
He's
I
got a
can't
lot
wait.
of stories.
I can't
for
wait.
Sure.
I can't wait. Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Josh.
Thank
We'll
you.
after you get the coop done, we'll come back and talk more about it. Thank you. See ya.